Thank you to Riyadh for Word of the Day. What a great quiz. I mean, they need to change the rules so that I can join in at some point. So, we'll see. Riyadh says we're not live, Carla. Is that a thing? We'll find out. We'll find out in just a moment. It's the 22nd. It's the 22nd of February, 2022. February? No, it's the 2nd of February, 2022. The reason I'm confused is today is the 2222. And I just looked at my clock and it said 020222. And I'm trying to work out which one of those is the month, which one of those is the day, and which one of those is the year. It's the 2nd of February, 2022. 2222. 2. Testing. 1, 2. Thank you, Riyadh. That was a great Word of the Day. That'll return next week, same time. That's so good. What a great opportunity to win stuff. So wonderful. Stay with Backchannel. We're going to take a look through some of the newspapers across the United States, find out what's happening in this insane country full of super creative people. There's all sorts happening. And when we go to these little local states and local newspapers, like the Anniston Star we're going to look at, we find out things about a little shop. It's brilliant. So it's just sometimes it opens your mind as to what's happening amongst the 362 million other people that happen to be in this amazing country. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to the Anthony Davis Show. If you have a newspaper that you would like me to check out today, then just let me know and I will review it for you. We have a guest coming up in a little while as well. We'll say hello to him. Also, hi to Alexia. Thank you. And Jim's sending a command to shut off Backchannel. I'll try not to take that personally, Jim. Maybe you could just leave it on. Maybe you might like. Maybe you might like what you hear. Stacey's with us as well. She's having pizza and chips and cookies and chocolate milk today. So just use the word exit, Jim. If you really want to go, just use the word exit. Just say. But the rest of you, please do not use that word. It's such a terrible word for my show. I'm very grateful that you are here, though. So we've got lots to talk about today. It's going to be a very interesting show. We're going to look at Hawaii culture, which is under threat from the military. New policies for elite transgender swimmers unveiled in the US. It's also Black History Month, so we'll be looking at Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist and newspaper publisher. And we'll have our first ever guest. That's right, Jamie Wareham, founder of Queer AF. He helps queer creatives kickstart their careers in the media, so we'll be talking to him as well. But let's just jump straight into the newspapers, and I promise you the Anniston Star, and we're going to start with that. A good thing for Hobson City is the headline, and as I promised you, a little shop in a little place. That's where we're starting. Hobson City Grocery, located at 608 McDaniel Street, celebrated its grand opening on Saturday with a grill fired up to feed everyone and an owner fired up to help her community in a positive way. Yes, it kind of came by accident, said Michelle Malone, the owner. I was working from home and hating it. Malone said she had a friend who'd spoken to the previous owner of the store and wanted to sell out. She said, I've never done this kind of thing before, and I asked her to let me think about it for a little while and see if it's something I wanted to do. And I wasn't born and raised here, but my family is here. My grandmother's house is right around the corner. My uncle used to have a business here, and everybody I know kind of knows me, and I know most of the people. And she said her decision to take the leap of faith was spurred by the knowledge the community needed it. So with the store closed, everyone was having to go a long way to get those things they needed, Malone said. A lot of people telling me they are glad the store is open again. They come in, I know them, we have a great conversation. I think it's a good thing for Hobson City. You see? It doesn't even say what she sells. Oh, it's like a little grocery store. There you go. It's like chips and a little bit of fruit, and I mean, I'll be honest, she doesn't have much stuff in there. I'll be honest. I'm just looking at the shelves. It's like 6 things. It's like if you want Doritos and a lime, you're gonna be fine. But anything more than that might be a problem. It's very sweet. Marsh files Mother of All School Choice Bills. This is legislation. One sponsor called the Mother of All School Choice Bills will be filed in the Alabama legislature this week and could get its first committee vote on Wednesday. Isn't it Wednesday? It's Wednesday today. Dubbed the Parents' Choice Act, the bill would allow for education savings accounts in which parents can use education tax dollars to spend on alternative schooling for their children, including private school or homeschool. What? It said if it becomes law, it's not going to become law, and is fully implemented, It's not going to be fully implemented. By the 2024-2025 school year, the bill would provide about state funding, about $6,500 to any K-12 students, including those students in public school, private school, and homeschool, no matter their financial status, to attend an alternative school of their choice. Isn't that interesting? So they're taking the funding that will go into a public school, and the parent can access that money and spend it at a private school. Yeah, but I don't think they kind of understand how the economies of scale. Because it's not just $6,500 that is the cost of running a school. It's a collective amount. You try finding a private school for $6,500. Or try finding a homeschool teacher for $6,500. That is so cheap. It's so cheap. My child goes to preschool, and $6,500 will get you less than 3 months' education. This is not going to work. I'm telling you. It's not going to work. It's like, do people not understand? I don't understand. I don't understand how people don't understand. I don't understand how that's even a consideration. How's it even a consideration? Several Democrat leaders in the House and Senate on Monday told Alabama Daily News they had not seen the legislation. House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels said to help education in the state, leaders need to invest more in pre-K programs and after-school and public summer and after-school initiatives. He said it's like riding down Interstate 65. I'm not going to build Interstate 64 right next to it just because there's potholes in the existing road. I just cannot understand how they think that $6,500 is going to go anywhere. And also the problem is if you take that money out of the school system, that's paying a percentage of a teacher's salary. So if let's say like 6 kids in the class of 22 don't want to be in school and want to take the money instead, they won't have enough money to pay the teacher for the rest of the kids. Oh, man. That's funny. It's so funny. It made me choke. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Sherry and Ella and Ray and Ben and Elaine and Kaylin and Will and Jaden and Judy and Frank and Guerin as well. It's your first time on the show. Alexa's eating a clementine. Alexia, sorry, I don't want to set off your device there. I do love a clementine, don't you? It's like it's almost like a relative of the mandarin. They're like cousins. They're cousins. The New York Times this morning leads with Putin claims US is trying to goad Moscow into war. Yes, Putin ain't happy. He ain't happy. This morning, earlier today, the British government had to scramble fighter jets because there were some Russian planes entering UK airspace. And they had to escort them out. I mean, Putin is not happy. He said yesterday that the United States was trying to pull Russia into an armed conflict over Ukraine that his government did not want. And signaled that he was prepared to engage in more diplomacy, even as he insisted that NATO's presence in Eastern Europe, threatened world peace. Well, he's threatening world peace, isn't he? But at least he wants to talk. Nobody wants a war. Nobody wants a war. Warfare just seems so antiquated now, doesn't it? Like the idea of taking human troops and gathering 150,000 of them on the border. It just seems so antiquated to put human lives. Now we have like drones and, unmanned missions and things, Hashem, thank you for joining us. So I just get the feeling that there's a lot of posturing going on here. There's a lot of posturing, but I don't know. I can't predict what will happen. I have no idea. I can't, Mr. Putin is a former KGB agent, right? The guy is like highly trained killer / psychological warfare type of guy. He can outsmart most of us. He's very smart. That's why I enjoyed Trump's tenure, because he basically just sat back and watched it like some kind of reality TV show. Just like everything was playing into his lap. It says Mr. Putin said he hoped that dialogue will be continued over Russia's security demands, refraining from repeating his earlier threat to take unspecified military technical measures if the West did not comply. And he said, addressing the standoff over Ukraine for the first time since December, Mr. Putin appeared to be trying to dial down tensions slightly in a crisis that has ignited fears of a full-fledged Russian invasion of Ukraine. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm very anti-war. I'm very anti-war. Anything. I don't even like military equipment, or military planes or missiles or anything that's has the potential to harm people. Weapons, guns, anything. I'm like, no, thank you. I'd rather have confetti and cakes, a whole table full of snacks. Music, that's where you'll find me. I don't want to go to the kind of military convention. Thank you. Lucy, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Backchannel. I'm Anthony. We kind of talk about the news for a couple of hours each morning here. And it's fun, it's fun. Because we need to know about it, but we don't want it to be too serious because we'll be like, it's too serious. So we just talk about it, hopefully like regular people talk about it. COVID tests head to homes after a late dash. Yes, it says as the United States saw nearly vertical increases in coronavirus cases in late December and a growing backlash over a shortage of rapid tests. President Biden promised that his administration would mail 500 million of them to Americans, free of charge. There was a major hitch. The administration had yet to secure a single test kit for the program. The announcement sent officials hunting for stockpiles in warehouses around the country and uncommitted supply from large manufacturers. So today, the federal government is mailing tens of millions of rapid tests. I hope they're complete. Remember, did they rush them so fast they'll show up without the nose swab and you'll have to use an earbud or something? It says today the federal government is mailing tens of millions of rapid tests requested through the new Postal Service website. Well, that was a worry. I mean, because Louis DeJoy is still in charge of the post office. The guy that Trump put in, who he put him in because he wanted to screw up all the mail-in votes on purpose. It was part of the conspiracy. And I was thinking, Louis DeJoy is still in charge of the post office, and they're using the post office to send all of these tests. No one's going to get them. I applied for mine, haven't had them yet, but maybe I'm a little too premature with my requirement. It says 60 million households ordered the tests, according to the White House. The nation has little more than twice that many households overall, suggesting enormous interest. Orders are limited to 4 per household for now. Testing shortages have bedeviled the government since the beginning of the pandemic and the resurgent supply of home tests, which deliver results in about 15 minutes. I tested my daughter last night. It will be her 3rd test in 4 days. She had a test to go back to school last week. She had a test at school on Friday. And then I tested her last night because she's not been well. And no COVID. So you're fine. You're not going to catch anything off of me today, just so you know. Tom Brady has retired. It says his football career traced an arc that bordered on mythical, ascending from 6th round NFL to 7th-time Super Bowl champion, quarterback, and global celebrity. I have no idea who this guy is. I don't really know anything about sports. Tom Brady. I thought Tom Brady was the name of the airport at LAX. Oh, that's Tom Bradley. I have no idea who Tom Brady's wife is. Who is it? Is she famous? Is it like Jennifer Lopez or something? It's Giselle. I don't even know who Giselle is. Am I supposed to know who Giselle is? Well, she has one name, so I presume she's like a singer or a model. She a singer or a model? A model. Yeah. Is that why she stared at the carton of orange juice for 4 hours? Because it said concentrate on the side. That's a model joke. No? No. Okay. It's a famous model joke. Why did the model stare at the carton of orange juice? Because it said concentrate on the side. It's a very famous model joke. I didn't make it up. It's been around for years. It's a bit inappropriate these days, I guess. You can be smart and be a model. Work for me. I've no idea who Giselle is. I've no idea who Tom Brady is, but I'm thrilled that he's retired because it means I don't have to know who he is anymore. You know? If the announcement was that he wasn't retiring, I'd be like, oh, now I need to know who Tom Brady is. But I don't need to know because he's retiring. So we'll never hear of this guy ever again, fortunately. Apparently he's very good at football. Is it football that he plays? Yeah, football. Good luck, Tom. Have a great life with Giselle. National debt breaks record at $30 trillion. It says America's gross national debt topped $30 trillion for the first time on Tuesday, an ominous fiscal milestone that underscores the fragile nature of the country's long-term economic health as it grapples with soaring prices and the prospect of higher interest rates. The breach of that threshold, which was revealed in the new Treasury Department figures, arrived years earlier than previously projected, as a result of trillions in federal spending that the United States has deployed to combat the pandemic. That $5 trillion, which funded expanded jobless benefits, financial support for small businesses, and stimulus payments, was financed with borrowed money. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that the US borrows money from, like, China, you know? And so it's like there's all this, with one hand, it's like China's the enemy, and then the other hand, it's like we're indebted to China. It's like, pick one. You know, the thing is, you can actually have all of these things. China can politically be a foe, but it could also be a financier. And this is why it's all so nuanced. You know, you can't be like prejudice against an entire country. And it's the same with Russia, you know? It's these superpowers, they require involvement. You can't ignore that. It's not like they don't exist. You know, you have to work with them. If you're a superpower, you work with other superpowers, whether it be for trade or whether it be for debt or finance or whether it be for employment or materials. I mean, it's essential. We're a world industry. And all this stuff about, we'll make it in America. There's some stuff you just can't make in America. It has to be made in China. Because they have the infrastructure, because America hasn't invested. It's the same with my country in England. It's got no investment in infrastructure in that way. You know, they literally can't make anything. They used to do steel. British steel was a big thing. They used to do like a little tartan drummer girl in a plastic tube. Not anymore. It's just, everything's changed now. And then US leads deaths and lags in vaccinations among high-income nations, it says. On the front of the New York Times this morning, America, with one of the most powerful vaccine arsenals, has failed to inoculate as much of its population as other wealthy nations. Well, it's pretty obvious why, isn't it? You know, it's the cloud of misinformation. Sadly, you know, and having the election the same year as the pandemic forced the pandemic to become politicized, you know, so it's a tragedy, but that's the reality of it. You know, if there wasn't an election, then maybe we might not have had this extreme attitude to vaccinations, people thinking that, oh, you know, it's like Democrats can get vaccinated and Republicans don't. Where did that come from? It was when Trump started by saying that the pandemic, I quote, is the Democrats' new hoax. That's what he said. Those were his words. The Democrats' new hoax. He said it'll be gone. In a couple of days, it'll be gone. He said we have one case. It'll be gone. Like magic, he said. It'll be gone. Or like a miracle. Yeah, like a miracle, it'll be gone. He never really cared about it. That's why. You know, it was the wrong president at the wrong time. Jeremiah, thank you for joining us. Sean, hi. Kalani, hi. Jason, hi. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Alexia says it's American football. Yes, it's American football. Thank you. Tom Brady. I will never forget Tom Brady now. I feel like I've been indoctrinated into his world. And his beautiful wife, Giselle. I'm half expecting an invitation for dinner, seeing as I've been so generous about them. The Wall Street Journal this morning leads with Putin accuses US of ignoring demand in Ukraine standoff. Also, blaze at North Carolina fertilizer plant forces evacuation. And job market still tight as hiring cools a bit. Startup investors retrench following rout in tech IPOs. And Exxon hits gusher of cash and oil. As oil rides high. Yes, Exxon is still making a lot of money out of fossil fuels, despite all of the effort and pressure to move people away from fossil fuels. Exxon are doing very well, thank you very much. So there we go. That's the Wall Street Journal this morning. Let me move on because that one is so small I can barely see it, and it would be too much of an eye test to try and do anything with that. Let's go to the Bradenton Herald now. Is it Florida, the Bradenton Herald? Yeah. 5 things to know about trial over Florida's new voting law. Well, there you go. That suggests it is Florida. It says, as the 2022 midterms heat up, a federal trial over a Florida voting law that put in new restrictions for mail-in ballots and the use of drop boxes is underway. The trial, which could last up to 2 weeks, is a nationally watched case that pits civil rights and voting rights advocates against Florida and national Republican groups. Here are the 5 things you need to know. The Republican-dominated Florida legislature passed the bill. Along party lines, Ron DeSantis signed the bill. The new law made a number of changes to how they vote by mail, including you now have to give a driver's license number, state ID number, or last 4 digits of your social security number to request a vote by mail. The rest is all on page 5, so I can't tell you what it is. But the point is that they're making it more difficult to vote, and they're doing that on purpose because they know that the more people vote, the less votes proportionally they're going to get. Because naturally, people tend to vote to the left because people invariably are quite progressive in this country. You know, it's a positive thing. People don't want to ban abortion or they don't hate immigrants. I mean, this is all from the right. People are generous and kind and forthright with their future-proof thinking. That's how this country is. All the polls, national polls, show that that's how it is. But unfortunately, Republicans have cottoned onto this and they're like, oh. I mean, the Republicans could just move from the right to a little bit more to the center and they'd probably do okay. But they're not. They're moving further and further to the right, and therefore they have to then start rigging elections. Such a shame. America used to be heralded as one of the great democracies. No one's doing that anymore. Sarasota Bradenton Airport gets new non-stop flight to Austin. That's nice. Allegiant plans to start non-stop services between Sarasota and Austin, Texas on April 14, with introductory fares as low as $49. But that doesn't include a seat, lavatory facilities, or wings. You have to pay extra for all of those things. So there we go. That's the Bradenton Herald this morning. Let's move on to the news press for Florida. They lead with flu makes comeback in Lee and Collier. Health officials blame increase on less masking and social distancing. Flu season, it says, returned to Southwest Florida with a vengeance this fall. And after years of virtual hibernation that was likely driven by widespread COVID-19 related masking and social distancing. Public health officials in Lee and Collier in recent weeks have counted the highest number of serious influenza cases since the start of the pandemic in March 2020. But as flu season now passes its peak in the region, they add that this flu strain does not appear to be abnormally dangerous. Well, that's good. I had a flu shot a couple of months ago. And about 4 weeks before that, I had my booster for COVID. If I drink a glass of water now, like water leaks out of all these holes all over my body. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. Jane as well. Welcome. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. It's the 2nd of February. It's the 2222. The 2nd of the 2nd, 2022. All the twos. All the twos. Non-profits sue feds over record Manatee Die Off. Yes, 3 conservation non-profits on Tuesday filed a lawsuit against the federal government over Florida's Manatee Unprecedented Die Off last year. The Center for Biological Diversity Defenders of Wildlife and Save the Manatee Club in August filed a required notice of their intent to sue the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which they also petitioned in 2008 to update the manatee's critical habitat designation. A record 1,100 manatee deaths were recorded last year, mostly in Brevard County stretch of the Indian River Lagoon, according to state wildlife data. And that surpasses the previous record of 830 set in 2013. I mean, they're basically saying that they're saying that the government just didn't make the effort to protect manatees, knowing full well that they were at a critical level, and the government did nothing. It was during, Trump's tenure, of course, because all of those Environmental Protection Agency orders were all ignored and rolled back, including the pollution that was put out into rivers and oceans from factories. Charisse, hello. Michelle, hello. Thank you for joining us here on Backchannel. And also, Bill 6 changes to Florida voting laws. It says a Republican state senator unveiled legislation on Monday with a slew of changes to Florida's voting laws, including a proposal sought by Ron DeSantis to establish a new office investigating election fraud. There was no election fraud. There was no election fraud. It's been investigated dozens of times. There was 61 court cases, and they all got thrown out. The Supreme Court refused to look at it because they knew that there was no fraud. There was no fraud, and yet DeSantis is setting up an office to investigate election fraud. There was none. This is all part of their coup attempt for 2022 and 2024. There'll be another coup. There'll be more violence. There'll be more anarchy and insanity. It's all going to come because they're preparing for it now. Okay, let's go to the Bakersfield in California now. Oil prices threaten Buttonwillow Park District is the headline. Edible schoolyard, some children eating some plants. Kern County, it kicked off its month-long winter camp program on Tuesday afternoon because the weather is chilly and it gets dark earlier. Winter sessions tend to be spent mostly in the kitchen, according to the program director, but campers were able to spend some time outside on Tuesday, touring the Buena Vista Edible Schoolyard, learning the source of the kitchen's bounty. They were even able to harvest a few ingredients for vegetable chow mein. Oh, I would love a vegetable chow mein right now. I've just realized that I'm really hungry. Oh yeah, it's the Lunar New Year. I can eat whatever I like. Aspen, thank you for joining us. I've always loved the name Aspen. I think it's a wonderful name. And Devlin, hello. Coco's here as well. Thank you for joining Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. We take a look at the news during this show. It's every morning. We kind of work out what's happening around the country. Fire destroys thousands of toys meant for Bakersfield Homeless Center kids. Oh, no. This is not good. Thousands of colorful, shiny toys awaited being played with and cherished by kids in the Bakersfield Homeless Center. A fire on Monday afternoon spread into an off-site storage unit housing the toys, scorching them and depriving those children of potential birthday gifts and tokens and recognition. Emma, hello. Snoopy, hello. Thank you. Hugo, hello. It's great to see you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning. I'm feeling wanted for the first time in my life, you know? All of my daddy issues are kind of improved. Got some great stuff to come, by the way. We're going to look at a few more of the morning papers. We're also going to discuss the US unveiling its policy for elite transgender swimmers. This has been a huge story about the Olympics, especially, you know, how transgender Olympians can compete with people who are not of the same biological sex. And so it's caused a huge controversy because they're saying that some people are stronger, you know, men traditionally are stronger, and therefore they shouldn't be competing with women, even though they're transgender. And so, anyway, they've come up with kind of an interesting solution. I was discussing this with my friend Dean on a hike the other day. We were talking about this exact issue, and we couldn't come up with a solution for it. We just couldn't. I said that maybe the Paralympics need to be designated not just for people who are disabled, but for everybody who doesn't fit into the old-fashioned traditional, you know, thing. So it's like, don't call it the Paralympics. Call it the everyone else Olympics. So you have the main Olympics for people who are able-bodied and people who are not trans or just people who fit that description. And then you have the other Olympics, not called the Paralympics anymore, for everybody else. Could that work? Just if you call it the Paralympics, then transgender people are not going to want to go into it because they'll be like, well, I'm not disabled. So it's about, how do you pitch it? Anyway, they've come up with a really interesting way to fix this. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to look at Hawaii, because on the front page of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser, it says the U.S. military plans to appeal the state's emergency order requiring it to drain its Red Hill fuel tanks. It was a story we didn't get a chance to get to yesterday. So we'll take a look at that. And we've also got Frederick Douglass to discuss as well, because it's Black History Month, of course. The abolitionist will be looking at his life and his legacy a little bit later. And we also have a guest as well. We'll be talking to Jamie Wareham, who's the founder of Queer AF. He's funding a new generation of queer creatives to kickstart their career and hopefully change the media's prejudice. So all that to come here on Backchannel on The Anthony Davis Show. That's what it says right there. Show Davis, Anthony, the backwards. If you'd like to get in touch, you can just fire up your web chat, backchannel.tv. You can do that on your browser. You can do that on your phone. Do it on your laptop. You can do it on your mum's iPad. Just get rid of that recipe. Backchannel.tv. Or if you have an Echo Show, you can wake it up, say the word say, and then your message. And that comes through to me as well. The show's also streaming on YouTube. Jennifer, good morning. Or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm in California, so I keep saying good morning because it's 10 a.m. for me over here. But you may be on the East Coast, in which case it's 12 after 1, or you might be somewhere in the middle. In which case you can work that out, because maths, literally, 3 things I was never very good at school. English and maths. Okay, let's carry on with some of the newspapers this morning. Let's go to the Enterprise Record now for California. And see what they're cooking up this morning. So many screens, so little time. Here we go. Got it. Housing development to open in 15 months. Okay, well, we can wait. You want to wait? We can wait. It says a new affordable housing development with the working name Park Avenue, located at the former Jesus Center in Chico, will create 59 new permanent affordable homes with supportive services. The non-profit Jamboree Housing Corporation had a groundbreaking event on Tuesday for the development, which is set to open in about 15 months. We'll wait. Also, Council talks early stages of districting. The deadline is April 15 for the final map. The city of Chico is taking the next step in its redistricting process by allowing residents to provide input and draw their own maps. A presentation was given on Tuesday before the Chico City Council by a consultant hired by the city to aid the process, which was followed by some discussion. Yes, all these new maps are coming out now, aren't they? And some are being rejected because they're like, no, that's obviously designed to enable more Republicans or Democrats to vote, because the Democrats do gerrymandering as well. It's not exclusive to the Republicans. Dry January means less water than normal in the snow. It says the water contained in California's mountain snow is now lower than the historical average after a January without significant rain or snow. A dramatic reversal from December that demonstrates the state's challenges in managing its water supply. Snow totals updated on Tuesday by the State Department of Water Resources shows the amount of water in Sierra Nevada mountain snowpack is at 92% of what's normal for this date. Climate change. Climate change. No mention of it in this article. No mention of climate change. What climate change does is it changes weather systems and weather patterns. The weather is not climate change specifically. It is the effect of climate change. Climate change is the temperature of the planet heating or cooling, and there's climate change. I wish they would just connect it. Do you know what I mean? I wish if there was any article about extreme weather. I was criticizing NBC the other day. They did a whole 10-minute feature on this cold snap that kind of, came in on the East Coast and just decimated some of the major metropolitan areas. No mention of climate change. Not a word. It's climate change. They called it a cold snap. Yeah, cold snap. Climate change. Iguanas falling out of the trees in Florida because they were frozen. Nah, it's nothing. It's climate change. Anyway, that was the Enterprise record. A reminder that Backchannel has a growing list of shows here for you to enjoy. There's Haley and Allison Live, waking you up in the morning, with lots of laughs and their one-star cinema review. There's Live Every Day with Liv Harrison, live from Texas. There's also Hal Rudnick, your pal Hal. He's on after me in around 45 minutes' time. A few more newspapers. The LA Times. Alexia says hi. Alexia, hi. If you're just testing your Echo Show, it works. Try it. Just say the wake-up word. Then you say, and then you say your message. And then I can see it. So clever. UCLA teacher raised worries last year. This is to his students at UCLA. The warning signs about lecturer Matthew C. Harris seemed abundant and long-standing. By the spring of 2021, the philosophy lecturer had gained a reputation as odd and quixotic. Why have I never read that word before? What's quixotic? Speaking haltingly, changing his syllabus willy-nilly, and spending the first 4 weeks of his philosophy of race class without once showing his face over Zoom. It said things got weirder as the term progressed, students said, leading to a final exam that included an essay question about the hate-filled manifesto of Christopher Dorner, former LAPD officer, whose shooting rampage in 2013 killed 4 people. Students were asked to consider the oppression, disrespect and loss of dignity suffered by the homicidal ex-cop. Eventually, one student said she reported Harris to campus authorities and the FBI after he directed another student to his YouTube channel, which included disturbing references to perversion and bomb threats at LAX. Wow. I mean, this story unfortunately continues on page 5, so I'm not able to read the rest of it. But this is an ex-lecturer who was arrested in Colorado after making threats, and some say the school ignored signs. I'd say people are losing it. Working from home, people are losing it. There's a photograph of a Uyghur in Turkey lost touch with his family after China's mass arrest. It says Uyghurs seize on games to shine light on their plight. Some exiles protest China's repression and labor camps. And a lovely photo of this guy leaning off a ship and trying to catch a seagull. I don't know why you would do that. Why Omicron wasn't a great unifier is also a headline here. It says, as Omicron swept through Los Angeles over the last 2 months with unprecedented speed, but ultimately traced a grim path that is becoming increasingly familiar 2 years into the pandemic. Cases first exploded in affluent communities where air travel likely introduced the latest coronavirus variant, which got a head start in places like South Africa, London, New York. At first, it appeared the variant might be a great unifier, spreading equally throughout the country. But when it took a hard turn toward lower-income communities of color that had already suffered the most throughout the pandemic, by January's end, officials with the LA County Department of Public Health said South and South Central Los Angeles, East LA, and parts of the San Fernando Valley once again had the highest coronavirus cases in the county. They say the shift likely reflects the fact that we're now seeing increased transmission among those whose jobs are putting them in close contact with others and who often live in crowded housing. The findings lay bare even a highly contagious variant like Omicron, how it couldn't overcome the pervasive and systemic inequities of public health in a massive county like Los Angeles. It's like it almost seeks out the people who are struggling the most, the people who are working the hardest, the people who are doing the most difficult jobs. It's like Omicron is chasing those people. It's how it feels anyway. Fortunately, Omicron is proving to be generally less severe than other strains of the coronavirus. But only if you're vaccinated. So, just a reminder. Healthy. Vicky has joined us. Vicky says hi. Hi, Vicky. Thank you for joining Backchannel. Ruth, Tom, Norman, James, Jack, Kim, Beth, everybody spending their morning here with Backchannel. It's wonderful to know that you are. Brady showed his greatness on field until the very end. This is another story about Tom Brady, who apparently is a footballer. There's such an educational show. And also a photograph of monarch butterflies. A photo of them mating. Oof. You do not want to see this. It says the population is starting to recover after nearly disappearing for 2 years. And apparently the sound of pairs of monarch butterflies hitting the ground goes like this. Plop, plop, plop. It says mating season, which sometimes involves the male monarch hurtling the female from canopy to earth, had come early in a small eucalyptus grove at the end of a housing tract. It was raining butterflies. Well, it's better than men. Or iguanas, for that fact. One pair landed next to a black Labrador stretched out in the dappled sun. The dog wiggled to her feet. I do love those monarch butterflies. I do see them here in Los Angeles. They're pretty amazing. But I've never seen any mating, which I'm really pleased about because that photo is quite explicit. Who knew? It's enormous. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution is next. Pfizer seeks okay for youngest kids is the headline. This is very good news, especially for people like me who have children under 5. It says Pfizer and its partner BioNTech asked the Food and Drug Administration on Tuesday to authorize a 2-dose regimen of their coronavirus vaccine for children younger than 5, while the companies continue to research whether 3 doses would work better in the age group. Oh, that's great. It's hard enough to get a child to go and get 1 shot. You know? Don't give them 3 doses. Just give them 1 dose. It's fine. It says in a highly unusual move, the federal regulators pressed the companies to submit a request for emergency authorization. Even though the 2 doses failed to produce the hoped-for immune response among children aged 2 to 4 in clinical trials, only children between 6 months and 2 years old demonstrated an immune response comparable to that of older teenagers and young adults, the standard for a successful trial. The doses were 1/10 the strength of the adult dose. So there we go. Interesting. Confederate memorials dot Georgia landscape, it says, at busy intersections in Druid Hills. Hundreds of motorists whiz by a memorial to Confederate States President Jefferson Davis without knowing it, but it's a reminder of how ever-present such monuments are in Georgia. Yeah. Take them down. Just take them down. It's enough already. Just put them in a museum. If people want to go and learn about the Confederacy, they can go and see it in a museum. You don't have to see it on the street. It's not necessary. UPS earnings surged by over $11 billion. The shipping giant already anticipates it will reach its 2023 goals. Well, that's probably because of me and my Amazon shopping addiction. That's what that is. One of my favorite chat-up lines used to be, what is your favorite courier company? You could tell a lot about a person based on which courier company they chose as their favorite. Carla, what's your favorite courier company? Oh, please don't dismiss. This is very important psychological test. I'm a UPS guy. No, like DHL or WorldNet or what's the yellow one? Federal Express. FedEx is white and blue, but what's the yellow one? Anyway, I like to psychologically profile people based upon what their favorite courier company is. Isn't that tragic? I just like the brown truck with the brown suit and the whole brown. I just like brown. I'm a child of the 70s. I just like brown. So, do you know what UPS's profit was last year? Do you know what their profit was? Their net profit last year? It was $12.89 billion. That's up 15% on the year before. They made, because of the pandemic, they made a huge amount more than they did the year before. Yeah, these companies have made a fortune. Meanwhile, the pandemic's killed a whole bunch of people, like 2 million people around the world. And yet there's companies, pharmaceutical companies and vaccine companies and delivery companies, and making a fortune. Loving it. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's take a look at the Times now for Gainesville. It says, lawmakers push ban on teaching CRT. I mean, this is just like, oh, really? Still? I was going to ask you, Carlo, should we do our guest at around 10:30? Just because, is that possible? In 20 minutes, okay. Georgia Republicans have introduced 2 bills this month that propose to ban the teaching of critical race theory in public schools. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. There's no critical race theory in public schools. This whole thing is it's kind of racist, made-up racist trope to try and divide people. That's what this is, just tipping you off. And violations will be met by pauses in government funding. It says the more recent bill, Senate Bill 377, was introduced last week by Senator Bo Hatchett, who said in a press release that CRT and other divisive topics must be banned in higher education before they start seeping down into our K-12 schools. He said he and his colleagues have found out a lot during their investigations. We have found out a lot. What, you mean that people actually like to talk about race? And people like to talk about discrimination? And people think it's important to talk about slavery? Is that what you found out? Or did you find something else out that you don't want to know? It says now they're holding their cards close to their chests. The co-sponsored bill, which concerns public elementary and secondary schools, sent a list of 3 questions to all colleges within the university system of Georgia. The questions center on privilege and oppression, asking whether students are being taught that possessing certain characteristics inherently designates them as being either privileged or oppressed, or whether there are any courses teaching students who identify as white, male, heterosexual, or Christian that they're intrinsically privileged and oppressive, which is defined as malicious or unjust and wrong. There is just no intellect behind any of this. There's just no critical thinking. These are just like words. They're supposed to confuse people into thinking that Hatchett and Donoghue are doing a good thing. He said details will be forthcoming once hearings and committee meetings get underway. Yeah, because there's no details. Because it doesn't exist. CRT is a university-level module that some people opt to take, very few, that is something that is discussed with people who are going into sociology or something very specific to that. It is not taught in elementary schools. It's not taught in high schools. It's not taught in public schools. What they are doing, what they're trying to do, is they're trying to repurpose critical race theory. They've given it this abbreviation, CRT, which was never a thing. They've given it this thing so that people don't really know what it is. If you abbreviate anything like that, you give it an acronym or something, it suddenly becomes a thing, a thing. Like, who knows what PhD stands for? But you know what a PhD is, right? That's my point. We can do that in a minute. That'll be great. So, anyway, my point is the reason it's so upsetting is because they are creating a law, seeking to have a law in search of a problem. There is no problem. But by creating this, they are creating a problem. And they are making people anxious or nervous. And the people they're making anxious or nervous invariably are white Christians. They themselves are white Christians. There's no black people saying they don't want critical race theory taught. Funny that. It's a little bit like, all this controversy over Joe Biden choosing a Supreme Court nomination, a black female. And, they're saying, it's not right that he should be doing. And it's like the only problem they have with all of this, because Trump chose a female specifically, Reagan chose the first female specifically. The problem they have is with the word black. That's the problem they have. The problem is not with anything else. It's the word black. Because they're racists. Have the intellect to understand that it's essential to address the balance in society. Because black people have struggled more, have been oppressed, do find it more difficult to find employment or rise up through the corporate ladder or any of these things. Just trying to make it even. They don't want it even. They don't want it even. There's a fear that there is a changing demographic in America. There's a fear that, white people now are only like 53% of the population, and that worries them. It worries them. Be worried. Run. Go move. Jury declines murder charges in 2020 death. This is a Gainesville man's death from 2020. They declined to charge two men with a felony murder and instead indicted them on aggravated assault and battery charges. And a community support building is being covered. This is Angel House, finishes expansion project, adds 9 beds at a residential substance abuse recovery program for women in Gainesville. Women? Women shouldn't be allowed to have their own recovery program. I'm being ironic. I hope you appreciate the level of irony in this. Just saying that, if you start to single groups out, then surely you wouldn't want, if you don't want critical race theory taught, then maybe you don't want an expansion project that adds 9 beds for women because it's women. We live in a nuanced society. Everybody needs help. Talking of which, I'm really keen to talk about this transgender swimming story. It's very interesting to me because I was having a conversation about this the other day. America's competitive swimming's governing body has been updating. I'll start again. Let me just rewind. The US's competitive swimming's governing body has updated its policy on the eligibility of transgender athletes. A 3-person medical panel will now determine whether prior physical development of the athlete as a male gives transgender swimmers an unfair advantage. Now, you understand what this is and why this is, because men invariably are stronger than women, right? So if you're biologically born male, you transition to female, then there's a good chance that physically you're still going to have some of the attributes of your birth gender. Michael, hello. Matt, hi. Jason, Casey, Jerry, Tom and Jerry. Everybody's here. You can have your say at any time. Anything I'm saying that you want to contribute to, if you have an opposing view, just get in touch. Backchannel.tv, or you can just talk to your Echo Show. Say the wake-up word followed by say and then your message. So what they're going to do, these athletes, or this panel governing the athletes, is they're going to have a 3-person medical panel. And they're actually going to look at individuals. And they're going to do testosterone tests for 36 months before competitions. And they're going to be able to make an assumption based on an individual to say, well, hang on a second. Yes, you're female. We're not questioning your new gender, right? We're just saying that physically you're in the wrong team. And I actually think this is the right way to go about it, because I was trying to work out how you sort this out. And I was suggesting that the Paralympics gets converted into the Everything Else Olympics so that people who are, their birth gender, who've lived as women, can swim with women who've lived as women or were born as women, and everybody else can go into the newly branded Paralympics for everybody else. It's flawed. My theory will not work. People don't want to be segregated. People want to be seen as individuals. And so therefore I think that what they've come up with, this new policy, which is effective immediately, is actually very clever because it takes the individual into account. I'm interested to know what transgender people would think about this. and whether they've been consulted. This comes as a transgender Pennsylvania University athlete has been smashing female swimming records. In a statement, USA Swimming said it has and will continue to champion gender equity and the inclusivity of all cisgender and transgender women and their rights to participate in sport, while also fervently supporting competitive equity at elite levels of competition. Maybe we can ask Jamie about this, our guest who's coming on shortly, because it's a very good subject for him. It says the policy for elite athletes, it said, acknowledges a competitive difference in the male and female categories and the disadvantages this presents in elite head-to-head competition. USA Swimming cited data showing that the top-ranked female athlete in 2021 would on average be ranked below 536th on the male events that year. Wow, that's interesting. So there are 536 men that are stronger swimmers than the top female. They say the new policy relies on science and medical evidence-based methods to provide a level playing field for elite cisgender women. They added the policy serves to mitigate the advantages associated with male puberty and physiology. The policy update comes amid controversy over University of Pennsylvania transgender swimmer Leah Thomas, who competed on the men's team for 3 seasons before starting hormone replacement therapy in spring of 2019. She has shattered records for her university swim team, posting the fastest time of any female swimmer. At a meeting in Ohio in December, Ms. Thomas qualified for the National Collegiate Athletic Association Championships, finishing 38 seconds ahead of her second-place teammate. 38 seconds, that's so much further forward. On Tuesday, Ms. Thomas' teammate released a statement supporting her. They said, as members of the Penn women's swimming and diving team and teammates of Leah Thomas, we want to express our full support for Leah in her transition, the team members said in the statement. We value her as a person, teammate and friend, they said, pushing back against anonymous statements to the press, which they said were not representative of the feelings, values and opinions of the entire Penn team, composed of 39 women with diverse backgrounds. You see, part of the problem is that people who don't understand transgender as a construct, they struggle to weigh in on this debate. Because the thing about being transgender is you didn't choose your gender. You don't, grow up your birth gender and then be like, you know something? I think I want to be the other gender. That's not how transgenderism works. From the moment that you are born, you're like, they stuck the wrong body on my head. If you think about the complexities of humanity, right? Some people are born with no legs or no arms, or some people are born with a brain that doesn't work properly, or epilepsy, or, misfiring, or things like that. It's highly likely that people will be... it's highly likely that people are going to come out different. So yeah, there's the majority. Being heterosexual and being your birth gender and living as your birth gender. That's highly likely that is going to be the majority. But humanity is imperfect. And so some people are going to be born with a female brain and a male body. That's the imperfection of humanity. And so we just have to work out how to help people like that. It's nothing to do with someone deciding they want to change their gender. It's a bit like your sexuality. It's a bit like, what do they call it? What's it called when they try and when the church tries to change your sexual preference? Conversion therapy. It's like conversion therapy. It's like you're asking someone to change something that they didn't choose in the first place. You don't choose to be straight, you don't choose to be gay. It's what you're given. Thank you very much for joining the show. Sam and Gordon, Barney, Michael, Matt and Jason, Casey, thank you for spending your time with us. Stacey had to go about 10 minutes ago, so Stacey, have a great day. But it's very interesting, this conversation about transgender sports people. I find it fascinating because, of course, it's a grey area. And I was genuinely on a hike with my friend Dean the other day, and we were having a conversation about it. And I was saying, I just don't know how to solve this problem. Like, I can't get my head around how you solve this problem. People that are living in their new gender, but still have the physical attributes of their former gender, makes them stronger, or could be make them weaker if they've transitioned from male from female to male. So I don't really know the answer, to be honest. I'm genuinely like, what is the answer? And then so when I read this morning, that the organization, the official organization, had kind of come up with an idea of how to deal with this, I was like, wow, that's actually really clever. You're taking people on a case-by-case basis. So this is US competitive swimming's governing body. From today, it was yesterday actually, they've updated their policy on the eligibility of transgender athletes. And it's a 3-person medical panel will now determine whether prior physical development of the athlete as a male gives transgender female swimmers an unfair advantage. And they'll be testing them for testosterone levels for 36 months before competitions. I mean, that's 3 years of testing. That's quite a lot of... I don't quite know how that works, especially if somebody has recently transitioned. Because, of course, if you're transitioning to female, then you would take estrogen. If you're transitioning to male, then you would take testosterone. And this is because of the Pennsylvania athlete who's trans, who's been smashing the female records. It's kind of... I think it's very interesting. I also love the fact that the team are like, yeah, we're right behind her. It's like, yeah, because you're winning. I mean, it's almost like you want to just say, just do whatever you like. You know, we're just going to accept it. Everyone's just like a free for all. You just like whoever gets there first wins. Doesn't matter what their gender, doesn't matter anything. It's like, because I'm sure that there are going to be some stronger women than men in many cases. But of course, the rules are the rules. These are the rules. If you have a view on this, then, let me know. You're welcome to message me to get in touch in the usual way. You can say the wake-up word with your Echo Show, then the word say, and then your message. You can also go to backchannel.tv, and you can do your thing right there. And we've also got a streaming channel on YouTube, so you can watch the show on YouTube. If you can't see me, then YouTube is the answer. And you can follow along right there. Easy. Oh, what happened there? Something strange happened to me. So let's move on a little bit because we've got lots to talk about. And I also want to talk about Frederick Douglass in a little while as well, the 1847 abolitionist. He was born on the 14th of February, on Valentine's Day, actually, in 1818 in Talbot County, Maryland. He died on the 20th of February in 1895 at the age of 77. Because it's Black History Month, I thought that we would, consider somebody who obviously was so very pioneering on this subject, because he was the leader of the abolitionist movement in the American Northwest, most famous for his oratory and writing. And so we're going to take a look at him and find out exactly what his story is and all about in a minute. But first, we're going to talk to our guest, who is, I think, in England, which is wonderful, and is coming to us all the way here on Backchannel from England, and is actually our first guest that we've had on this show, which is rather wonderful. And from the organization Queer AF, the founder, Jamie Wareham. Jamie, good morning / good evening, because it's good evening for you, right?
Good morning to everyone in America.
Or not everyone, just I'm at the end of the world here. I'm like on the West Coast, so this is the end of the world. Where in England are you? Because I'm an Englishman, so I'm interested.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, no, I'm down in Cornwall at the moment. Just
are you?
Yeah.
How lovely. We used to call that Rick Stein County.
Absolutely, yeah, just down the
road. Yeah. Was it Padstow? Is that where he was? I think
he is. Yeah. I think he's got a few other places now, but he's still
yeah.
placed there. It's nice there.
So, I mean, we've just been talking about, I don't know if you've been listening to what we've been saying here, but we've been talking about transgender athletes. And I was actually interested in your opinion on this because I'll just explain and ask you a little bit about your organization first, because we don't have long. But Queer AF is funding a new generation of queer creatives to kickstart their career. Is that right? And you started with a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we ran for 4 seasons, funded by a UK organisation called Student Pride. We basically hired first-time audio producers because we knew that it was a real barrier to get into the industry, particularly if you're kind of from a queer background. So we did that. We had Evan Davis and Ian McKellen, Ollie Alexander, Courtney Act, all these amazing, cool queer folk that brought an audience to these young producers who told like a documentary-style podcast. And yeah, now we've relaunched as an organisation that's using our funds to kind of train, mentor, and support kind of even more creatives to get started.
And how's it going? I mean, because, you know, with these things, you start them and you don't really know, like, is this going to take off or not? Has it taken off?
Yeah, really well. We had a really good, so we've been testing so basically what we've done now is launched a weekly newsletter that explains the kind of queer world because it's confusing out there. And so that comes into an inbox every week. We've been testing that for about a year. And we launched to the public this week. And we've got a bunch of new subscribers and we've got some new funding from some great names, including Joe Lycett, the comedian. So yeah, it's gone really well. It's a really good launch week.
And what I found most interesting about it is the fact that you were like focusing on prejudice in the media. And the reason I thought that was interesting is because I started as a kid as an actor. And so I was like in the theatre and stuff. And the theatre was actually the first industry to really be open to people who were non-traditional, you know, so circus folk and not just gay or transgender but, you know, little people and ugly people. You know, the theatre has always been one of the most open industries in that regard and continues to be so. And yet the media, which you would have thought would evolve out of the theatre because it's performance, right, has not really followed suit, has it?
No, absolutely not. So I started Queer AF off the back of an editor telling me to stop pitching gay stories because there was no money or audience in them. And so I guess we set out to prove that wrong. And with an international audience and a bunch of financial backers and all sorts of, funnily enough, advertising across our podcast beforehand, we rather proved that wrong. And I think the history of the press has been one that's, you know, it's been mostly made up of folk that look like me and you, right? Men, cisgender. There's also, you know, in the UK press, there's a lot of gay men working in it. And in the LGBTQ media over here, it's mostly people like with me and my lived experience. So the reason we've started Queer AF is because I think that it's time for that to shift. And for the kind of gatekeepers who have kind of been getting in the way of kind of commissioning stories that count, because they've been really focused on ads and clicks. It's time for them to, well, at least invite in a new generation, if not step aside.
I went on a flight to Cleveland, Ohio, a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago now. And I was walking down the jet bridge to get on the aeroplane, and there was advertisements for United Airlines, and it was 2 guys sitting in a premium economy seat, like all cuddled up together. And it was the first time I'd seen in advertising in the US in that kind of environment, because obviously on TV it's starting to break through. But it was the first time I'd seen it in, like, you know, the airline industry doing it. And it made me feel really like wonderful. Like I was like emoting on this stinky jet bridge trying not to get COVID because this poster was appearing like every 3 posters down the bridge. But what about, my question to you is like, what is the industry afraid of traditionally? What have they been afraid of?
Gosh, what are we all afraid of? I think I think I always roll back to like that Harvey Milk quote, based out of his Hope speech. So once you know one of us, you realize we're not the monsters that the media writes about. We're different, right? Like that's the beauty about the kind of LGBTQIA plus community. We don't really want equality. We want equity because we're all different. We don't want to be the same. We just want our difference to be celebrated. And I think, like as with anything new, the media is, you know, thing. And the other thing that plays into it over here in the UK is a really big rising trend of transphobia in the press, which is spilling out into the street in hate crimes. And the reason that's happening, largely speaking, is because they've recognized that transgender rights are something they can turn into a culture war that drives a lot of clicks and traffic and engagement online, because we like nothing better than fighting with each other online. And so they're kind of at the moment kind of in the same way like they were in the 80s with the kind of gay moral panic that we had in the headlines then. That's doing a similar thing around transgender rights at the moment, and it's really scary for that very, very marginalized community.
How do you think it compares to America? Because, you know, here we have an American audience, and we were talking a little bit about gay conversion therapy just before you came on, and how this kind of radical evangelical Christian movement has kind of moved away from arguably their traditions and have just become a far-right organization. So where does the UK sit compared to the US, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because a lot of US places, I saw something on CNN, Washington Post recently, have been talking about how they think it's bizarre that there's so much transphobia in our press over here. And they're like, you've got Brexit and you've got COVID and you've got all of these problems. Why are your newspapers talking so much about transphobia? And I think in many ways, there's a reason that they're not talking about the problems. It's a distraction tool. And as for the kind of comparison with the US, I think that, you know, as you was just talking about with the Leah Thomas story, it's a reminder of how, particularly in kind of broadcast news in the US, it's very similar to the UK press in the way that the kind of approach to it is a little bit more shock jockey, if you will. And so, yeah, but I'm always fascinated by kind of US newspaper press or like more traditional kind of press, because it's a slightly different regulation model, isn't it? Which is a bit of a dull point, but like it tempers the mood a little bit.
Well, the press, a little bit like politics, is not actually representative of the people. So you look at the English Parliament and you look at the ratio of men to women or gay to straight, it's not representative of greater society. And certainly in the cabinet, Boris Johnson's group of people, you know. And then it's the same in America, because the Congress does not really even come close to representing what America looks like, which is, you know, 47% ethnic minority. Barely a mention, you know, you've got like 2 Muslims in Congress. So do you think they'll ever get to a point, or we will ever get to a point, where we get the proportional representation from leadership and from the media when it comes to minority groups?
Absolutely. And like, to pull another Harvey Milk quote here, you got to have hope. If we sit here and think it's not possible, it won't be. I always touch upon, like, with climate change. I think it's very easy with climate change for us to kind of get stuck on moments where we're like, it's all doom and gloom and it's never going to be fixed, and why are we bothering? Whereas actually, I think we all know that that's not the case. And when we talk about it in a way that shows what is doable, shows what we are doing to fix it, that's where we all get into that kind of like headspace that we're like, actually, we can do this, we can change it, it is worth doing. And I take a similar approach to kind of representation in the media and indeed in broader society. And I think that's why projects like what I'm running are so important, because as you just touched upon there, even the smallest things of walking on through an airport and seeing a kind of gay couple on a billboard, that does so much for you, and particularly for young people who are growing up and people like me who grew up thinking, gosh, I'm going to have to come out at some point and I don't want that and I wish I could change it. If only there was more billboards for me to see when I was a kid, for me to realize that actually I'm okay.
And you could sit in premium economy.
I mean,
it's completely allowed now, whereas before they had no homosexuals in premium economy. United have changed their policy. It's very funny. I just want to ask you about this Leah story, you know, with I just want your view on it, because I was saying earlier, I was on a hike with my friend Dean and we were trying to work out, how do you solve this problem of transgender people in sport? And how do you, and are you happy with, you know, US Swimming's solution, which is to take people on a case-by-case basis, look at their physicality and say, you're in the wrong category, dear?
So I wouldn't judge myself as an expert on this case, but what I would say about Leah Thomas is the reason that she's in the headlines is because she's an excellent swimmer, and I think we're forgetting that a lot. And we wrote about this in the newsletter last week. We talked a lot about how the news kind of stormed around Michael Phelps' comments around kind of fairness. And I think what's interesting about that, and I was reading about it from an Instagram piece, was that we often, and the media often talks about Phelps being this biodiversity phenomenon. So why aren't we talking about Leah in the same way. Why have we kind of and if you want to really boil it down, it's because the media often talks about women, and therefore transgender women, in a different way to the way they talk about men. And so I think what's really interesting about this is that, like, this kind of conversation, if you will, does need to be worked out by the experts, by these ruling bodies, and they've done it so far and successfully. So the rule that they've just changed was been in place since 2011. It's only because the media has realized this is something that whips us all up into a frenzy that this suddenly has become huge news. And because Leah is a fantastic athlete. Normally we celebrate fantastic athletes, and that's what seems such a shame about this. So I think right now, case by case is a really kind of useful way to kind of calm the moment, so that we can work out the long-term solution rather than getting stuck in this short-term kind of fixes and plasters. And for now, Leah should be able to carry on swimming, as she's amazing at it.
Certainly is. Jamie, thank you for making that excellent point. Way better than I could. I was trying for the last half an hour to make that point. You did it so succinctly, so thank you very much. Listen, good luck with Queer AF. It's a genius concept to actually, like, focus in on the problem and expose the problem. Tell us the website, the Insta handle and stuff. Just do a little promotion, and then we'll say thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we're at queeraf.com, and same on Twitter and Instagram. We are queeraf with a little underscore under Instagram because I'm going to nab that one already. But yeah, our weekly newsletter comes out on a Saturday morning, and we explain the news so you don't have to doom scroll for it. So, like, take it easy and come find us instead.
Great. Thank you. Jamie Wareham from Queer AF. Appreciate you. Wonderful. Nice to talk. Maybe we'll talk again sometime. Take care.
Super. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye for now. There we go. That's Jamie Wareham. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. Thank you for joining me today. I'll come back tomorrow morning at 9 and we'll have another conversation together about the news and what's happening right across the United States. Stay with Backchannel because your pal Hal is on the way next. Bye.